Sometimes devotees ask how I met Srila Prabhupada, but that's not the subject of the Bhagavatam class. Still, I brought a picture that you can pass around. It's a picture of me and Srila Prabhupada. And maybe give to Mr. Hinduja first, and then it can be passed around. And then after class, we can talk about seeing. Yes. That's very nice. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yad, please repeat. Manchaya Nipa Shikhamanayo Anga Vainya Jayanta Nahusha Gayadya Aikyapatyam Rajam Vishrijya Nivishur Manum Ambujaksha Siddhanti Te Nupadavim Ta ihastita kim yad manchaya nipa shikhamanayon gabanya Jayanta Nahusha Gayadaya Aikyapatyam Rajam Vishvija Vivishurvanam Ambu Chaksha Siddhantite Nupadavim Ta ihastita kim. Please chant. Yadvanchaya nipashikamanayon gamanya Jantanahishakayadayan Yat. For whom? Manchaya. Out of desire. Nipa. Of kings. Sheka Manaya. The crown jewels. Angavanya Jayanta Nahushagaya Daya. Anga, the father of Vena. Vainya, Prithu, the son of Vena. Jayanta, Bharata, Nahusha, Yayati, Gaya, and others. Aikya, exclusive, Patyam, having sovereignty, Rajyam, their kingdoms, Vishrija, abandoning, Vivishu, entered, Vanam, the forest, Ambuja Aksha, O lotus-eyed one, Siddhanti, suffer frustration, Te, your, Anupadabim, on the path, Te, they, Iha, in this world, Ashtita, fixed, Kim, whether, wanting your association, the best of kings, Angabhaya, Jayantana, Husha, Gaya, and others abandoned their absolute sovereignty and entered the forest to seek you out. How could those kings suffer frustration in this world, O lotus-eyed one? Purport. Here Queen Rukmini refutes the ideas put forth by Lord Krishna in text 13. Srimati Rukmini Devi repeats Lord Krishna's own words. The Lord said, Astita paravim subru praya siddhanti yoshita. Women who follow my path generally suffer. Here, Rukmini Devi says, Siddhanti te nupadavim ta ihasti takim. Why should those fixed on your path suffer in this world? She gives the example of many great kings who renounced their powerful sovereignty to enter the forest, where they performed austerities and worshiped the Lord, intensely desiring his transcendental association. Thus, according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, Srimati Rukmini Devi here intends to tell Sri Krishna, you have said that I, a king's daughter, am unintelligent and frustrated because I married you. But how can you accuse me? But how can you accuse all these great enlightened kings of being unintelligent? They were the wisest of men, yet they gave up everything to follow you and were certainly not frustrated by the result. Indeed, they achieved the perfection of your association. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshu Sumilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Mano Vishtam Stapitam yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Tvarkamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sakajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sarvetam Savadhatam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Stute Tapta Kanchana Gurangi Radhe Vrindavan Vishamanu Sutta Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakopatarubhyascha Kripasindhu Vyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namaha Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasudeva Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Yadvanshaya Nipa Sikamanayo Angavanya Jayanta Nahusha Gayataya Aikyapatyam Rajyam Visritya Divishurvanam Ambujaksha Siddhanti Te Nupadavim Daihasmita Kim. I first saw Srila Prabhupada in the temple of Sri Rukmini Dwarkadish in Los Angeles. So I'm very happy to speak about this argument between Rukmini and Krishna. Here there are so many kings named, and these kings are glorified because they just gave up their sovereignty to accept the happiness of austerity in the forest. Of course, it wasn't just that austerity that made them happy. It was the searching for Krishna that made them happy. Rukmini says they went to seek out you in the forest. How could they suffer frustration in this world? So nobody becomes frustrated with Krishna. Rukmini is aware that Krishna said, you're just frustrated and you'll be frustrated with me. I'm not a worthy husband. But she's not frustrated. And she knows that others are not frustrated, like the kings. She knows that the kings were not disappointed. So she says they attained success by worshiping you and intensely desiring your transcendental association. But Krishna, you're accusing all these enlightened kings of being unintelligent. What? They were the wisest of men. And they achieved the perfection of your association. So one thing I could have researched for the class is all these kings. I could have looked up all the kings and found out about them and told you about the kings and glorified the kings. But I, from America, and in America we don't have kings at all. We got rid of all the kings. So I come from a different culture, and you have all the kings, and of course they're glorious because they became Krishna conscious. So Rukmini is refuting Krishna, who said that those who follow my path generally suffer. She says, no, why should they suffer if they're fixed on your path? But of course, being fixed on the path of Krishna is elaborated on. She says all these kings were performing austerities, intensely desiring your transcendental association, being on the path of Krishna. There's some separation. The mood is searching for Krishna, intensely desiring his transcendental association. This is like the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan who wandered around Vrindavan calling out the names of Krishna and his associates. Where are you, Lalita? Where are you, Krishna? Are you on Govardhan Hill? Are you on the banks of the Jamuna? The searching for Krishna. That's being on the path. And to stay fixed on the path, maybe that's a question in our minds as we take up Krishna consciousness. What ties us, what tethers us to the path? And the answer is that another form of Krishna ties us to the path, or Krishna in another form ties us to the path. Maybe the words that Krishna uses to instruct us in the Bhagavad-gita keep us fixed on the path. Krishna's words of instruction inspire us to stay on the path. What kept Rukmini fixed? That question is there. Rukmini has argued in some of these previous verses that she had foresight in her knowledge of wanting to get married to Krishna. But Krishna spoke foolishly about Rukmini. She says, "You have spoken foolishly about me. Jadyam vachas tava." Your words are foolish because you said about me that I didn't have knowledge and foresight in choosing you as my husband. You said that there's other men that I might have married, and you glorified them as being worthy of being my husband. This made Rukmini angry, and she manifested one of the Sthayi Bhavas, that the Sthayi Bhava of Mana. She became angry with Krishna. And she spoke to him. As she spoke to him, she frowned, and from her eyes, she glanced at him in anger. And this is actually what she was fulfilling Krishna's desire by doing this. Krishna wanted this. He wanted to see Rukmini in this mood. So this was going on. When I went to the library the other night to prepare for the class, I read this chapter from the beginning to catch up. You've all been studying the chapter for the past few weeks. So I had to read all the verses and catch up. And a couple of verses I liked, and I'll just mention a couple of points that I liked. There's a verse 5, Urukram, you lay down within the ocean as if you are afraid of the material modes of nature, and in pure consciousness you appeared within the heart of everyone as the Supersoul. You are always battling against the foolish material senses. And indeed, even your servants reject the privilege of royal dominion, which leads to the blindness of ignorance. So here there's some discussion. In text 12, Krishna had said that he took shelter in the ocean in Dwarka because he was afraid of the kings. But Rukmini, Srimati Rukmini Devi says that the actual kings of the world are the gunas, the material modes of nature, which impel all of us to act. And Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur points out that Krishna fears that his devotees will come under the influence of the modes of nature and become entangled in sense gratification. So he enters the internal ocean of their hearts. On the one hand, Krishna enters the ocean, the causal ocean, and lies there. But there's another ocean, Vishwanath Chakrabarti Thakur mentions, the internal ocean of our hearts, where the Supersoul is sitting. And he remains as the omniscient Supersoul, the Paramatma, and he protects his devotees from within the heart. And the word that is used, upalambana matra atma, in text 35, it also indicates that Krishna is the object of meditation for his devotees. So in our meditation on Krishna, we are connected to him. Vishwanath Chakravarti explains this a little more. He says, you are perceived in terms of sense objects. You are perceived in terms of taste and form and sound and touch. Taste we all know. Chaturvidashri Bhagavat Prasad Yasya Prasad. What is it? Chaturvidashri Bhagavat Prasad. Swadhana Tripten Hari Bhakta Sanghan. Spiritual master offers prasad and is pleased when the devotees take prasad. And in the form, we perceive Krishna's form in our meditation on the Archa Vigraha. And through sound, our ears, through our delicate ears are very delicate. And sound enters there and comes into our hearts and minds. And we see Krishna's beauty. And we can even touch his transcendental form. So Krishna becomes the sole object of the meditation of the devotee, and the devotee gives up sense gratification. He gives up the influence. He does not come under the influence of the modes of nature. This is part of Krishna's plan for the devotee. Krishna is protecting us within our hearts. So, Srila Prabhupada once mentioned that in connection with Krishna being in the heart, that we should pray to Krishna, please remind me always to chant your name. You are within me as the Paramatma. So you can put me into forgetfulness, or you can put me into a state of remembering you. So please do not put me into forgetfulness. In the Bhagavad-gita, Krishna says, I am the source of remembrance and knowledge and forgetfulness. So Srila Prabhupada reminds us to ask Krishna for remembrance, to chant and so on. This morning when we were chanting the prayers to the 6 Goswamis, I was inspired to look at the verses quite closely for a little longer after we recited the verses. You know, we don't want it just to be mechanical. Sometimes we do something mechanical. We know this is the day that we recite the Sat Goswami Astakam, and then we do it, and then, okay, that's done. But it's meant to be something that we really think about. So during the japa, I was looking a little bit at the verses also, and I noticed that 3 of the verses mention the ocean of Prema Amritam Ambo Nadi, the ocean of love of Krishna. 3 of the first 4 verses. Now, maybe I want to set the scene in your mind. I want you in your mind to kind of travel with me to the past. When I was in America, I lived in the middle of America. So I was nowhere close to the ocean, the East Coast, the West Coast, very, very far away. And I got my first opportunity to go to the ocean when I was 18. I went to Florida. So in the place where I lived in the middle of America, there were many lakes, many beautiful lakes. So we grew up close to the lakes. We were always swimming in the lakes, using the boats on the lakes. And the lakes are very still. There's no waves like in the ocean, unless the wind, sometimes the wind makes the lake toss and turn. But, the ocean just has these waves all the time. So eventually, when I got my opportunity to go to the ocean in Florida, I was just amazed how big the ocean is. So I think that this could be extended to anticipating what the Premartan Nadi is like. What is that ocean of love of Krishna like? We haven't seen it yet. In one sense, we haven't seen it. But the prayers to the 6 Goswamis, written like 500 years ago, somebody wrote down these prayers and it's telling us about the ocean of love of Krishna. And how the 6 Goswamis were dipping in the ocean. Srila Prabhupada was actually explaining this to the devotees once in New York. I was reading a lecture just the other day. He was encouraging the devotees, unless you are dipping in the ocean of love of Krishna, you cannot chant and dance for a long time. If you ask someone to dance and chant for even an hour, the person is tired after an hour. I chanted and danced. But that Prabhupada might have meant just ordinary chanting and dancing. If you ask someone to do ordinary chanting and dancing for an hour, after an hour they'll say, okay, that's nice, now I'm tired. But he said the chanting and dancing of the Goswamis went on almost 24 hours a day because they were dipping in the ocean of love of Krishna. The Goswamis, 6 Goswamis, were so glorious. These prayers that glorify them are so nice about how they were absorbed in love of Krishna. When I saw the ocean for the first time, I thought, oh, it's so wonderful. So let me go swimming. And I didn't know that the ocean has an undertow. The waves pull you away from the shore. And I thought it was like a lake, and I thought I could just go swimming. And all of a sudden, I was far away from the shore. And I said, what is going on? I'm going to drown. And I started screaming, help, help. And I started swimming with all my strength back to the shore. So I made it back to the shore. And I guess I could compare that to the ocean of love of Krishna and say, at least I don't, if I drowned in the ocean of love of Krishna, it won't it won't be so bad. But that's all I'm going to talk about. I think I've finished based on my notes. Let's see. Oh, there is one more thing. There is one more thing. But let's see if you have some questions. If you don't have any questions, maybe I'll continue another 5 minutes, but I don't want to go too long. You want to ask some questions? Mishnah? Surah.
Hare Krishna Bhuji. Thank you very much.
Speak slow and clear.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for wonderful class, sharing your realizations, your experience.
I can't hear you. I can't say one word at a time. Very slow.
Yes. In the purport, it was mentioned that the kings, it's not out of frustration they went in the forest, or in the forest they got frustrated. Because they were looking for Krishna, they were searching for Krishna, as you mentioned. They were rendering devotional service to Krishna, therefore the frustration was not there. They were experiencing bliss, ananda in serving Krishna. But in our practices of devotional service, when we perform devotional service for time being, we see we get frustrated and get disturbed in our services, in our practices. Maybe results are not coming, or maybe other reasons. So, how we can see that why we are getting frustrated and how to overcome this situation in our life.
Okay. I'm going to try to restate what you said to see if I understood. You said something about being fearless. Abai?
The kings in the forest, when they performed devotional service, they were not frustrated.
Right.
But when we perform devotional service, that many times it happens that we get frustrated.
We get frustrated. The kings didn't get frustrated. But why do we? Is that all? Was there more that you were trying to ask, or was that?
Why it happened and how to overcome.
Okay, why do we feel frustrated and how to overcome it? Well, we're in the learning stage, and Srila Prabhupada said that Maya is testing us. So of course we're going to feel some frustration because Maya is testing us. We have to learn how to apply all of the knowledge. We have to learn how to deal with others. We have to see everyone as spirit soul, part of Krishna. Prabhupada said as soon as there are two persons, there's going to be some difference, maybe some argument. You know, the devotees always went to Prabhupada and said, Prabhupada, it's so hard sometimes to deal with the devotees, or I'm frustrated, what should I do? I don't want to continue. That was common, and Prabhupada addressed their hearts and said, it's part of learning how to be a devotee. We're changing our mind. Our mind is becoming purified, and we're going to be. Why speak about others? Frustrating us. What about us frustrating others? How many times do we cause other people grief? And maybe we're not even aware of it. Sometimes we're aware of it. A devotee will say to you, you're really terrible. You're a cheater. Why are you treating me like this? Sometimes we become aware that we're actually really misbehaving or not acting like a devotee. But frustration, the ultimate result is that we won't be frustrated. That's what Rukmini is saying. As I said at the beginning of class, there's no question of being frustrated if you're with Krishna, if you're on the path with Krishna. So you have to have the hope, you have to have the long-term vision that in the end it's all okay. The situations that arise in this world, to use the ocean as in another way, to use the example of the ocean in another way, the analogy is that the ocean is producing all these waves and bringing all the foam to the beach. All the bubbles, all the foam. Prabhupada said this is like the bubbles are like the objects that we seek out in this world. We seek out material arrangements. We seek out material objects to satisfy us. But those bubbles don't last long in the ocean waves. They appear on the beach, and then almost immediately those bubbles disappear. So he said those are like the appearance and disappearance of the material phenomena. And yet we're trying to satisfy our hearts by attachments to these temporary objects. But when we're satisfied with not the temporary, Atmani eva manatushta, when we're satisfied with the eternal self, and no longer satisfied with the objects of the senses and the desires, material desires, which are born from the mind, If we renounce those, give those up, let me see. Prajahati yada kaman. Prajahati yada kaman. Prajahati yada kaman. Something. Just yesterday, I was looking at this verse. There's so many desires that are born from the mind. And Krishna says, give those up and just be satisfied with the self. Become pure. Purify the mind and become satisfied with that. So that's what we have to do. So that takes time and that takes practice. But it helps to know the other point I was going to make. I was going to mention the verse 37, where Rukmini says, everything that exists is within you, Krishna. And this same point is made by Nalakuvara and Managriva when they pray to Krishna after they come out of the trees and they're in their form as the demigods again. They pray to Krishna and say that everything is you, Krishna, the senses of the living entity, the minds of the living entity are nothing but you. So did you think like that before about when you see other people? Do you think that this person's senses, this person's mind is nothing but Krishna? The material energy is nothing but Krishna. Everything that exists within Krishna. Narada Muni explained this point when he was thinking, when he saw the two sons of Kubera intoxicated in the river with their girlfriends. He was thinking and telling them, he was thinking about this, and he was saying, the body doesn't even exist initially, before you get the body, it doesn't even exist. But the material elements come together and form the body. And based on that, you try to enjoy, and that's really unintelligent, you know. So I will teach you a lesson that you have to become trees. And then my Lord Krishna, he will set you free. So Krishna, when he's tied up by his mother, he remembers, oh my devotee Narada, he told these two sons of Kubera that they would be liberated by me. So Krishna he crawls and he drags the grinding mortar between the trees, and then he pulls, and trees come down. So amazing. Okay, I'll stop there. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna, glory to Srila Prabhupada.